So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people.
You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams.
The ambition, the aspiration, the dream.
I started my career as a prosecutor.
I was a career prosecutor for most of my career.
Having a background as a prosecutor.
I intend to create an opportunity economy.
Developing and creating an opportunity economy.
What I imagine and believe and call an opportunity economy.
You know what they say about putting lipstick on a pig, right? Well, try as they might to defend Kamala Harris, but the truth of the matter here really is that there isn't much substance to her canned responses across interviews. So guys, what do you want for dinner? So I was raised as a middle-class kid, you know what I mean? Kamala Harris spent months writing one speech, and it's not even a very good one. Something your English teacher would probably have given her a D+ on as an assignment. Do you guys know the feeling? But hey, that's not gonna stop Democrats and their mainstream media allies, will it, right? In fact, former presidential candidate Hillary Clinton said Kamala Harris doesn't have to defend her policies, that it would be a double standard to do so. Yeah, crazy, right? Check this out.
She does not have to do it, Kara. I'm going to just cut to the chase. In fact, she's put out policies on her campaign website. Mm-hmm. Anybody who's truly interested can go and read about them. She referenced policies. Mm-hmm. She actually doesn't just have policies and concepts. She has, plans about what to do. I think it's it's a double standard, and it's a double standard that is partly because they are still getting to know her, but also because they're still grappling with the idea like, oh, am I really going to vote for a woman to be president and commander-in-chief?
CNN's own Abby Phillips said Harris's recent interview with the National Association of Black Journalists, the NABJ, lacked specifics, but the panelists that she had on, they were just scrambling to defend the Democratic presidential nominee.
Black journalists today at the NABJ pressed Vice President Kamala Harris on policies from guns to the war in Gaza, but many of her answers lacked specifics, and some Democrats, like Hillary Clinton, told Kara Swisher that that's perfectly fine.
I'm not sure I agreed with her when she said it, but it was interesting for her to say it because I think she was talking strategically, politically, is that she doesn't have to say too much. I think probably most people agree they should say more because, as Audie Cornish of this network said, a lot of people are Kamala curious. And if you look at the statistics, I think Kirsten talked about them last night, Kristen did, that people want to know more from Kamala Harris.
This is at the heart of what voters want to know about her. She should have something that is really quick and understandable. And that wasn't really it.
She has to do three things. I agree. Actually, there's one other thing. Answer the question. She got the same question at the debate. And you know what else? When I went back and watched the debate again, every single policy question she got at the debate, she totally ignored and never answered it. Well, why is it that she believes she does not have to answer to journalists who are asking pretty basic questions of her?
Now, with all these different people defending her, Kamala Harris doesn't just come off as mediocre anymore. In fact, she comes off as pretentious, shallow, vapid, and even condescending. You know what I mean? Phillips played a clip of Kamala Harris responding to a question about whether her voters were better off than they were 4 years ago. See if you guys can spot her answer here as it's written out. We came in during the worst public health epidemic in centuries. We came in after the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War, and a lot of it due in large part to the mismanagement by the former president as it relates to the COVID pandemic and obviously January 6th. And we had a lot of work to do to clean up a mess. As of today, we have created over 16 million new jobs, over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. We have the lowest black unemployment rate in generations. Yeah, as Abby Phillips said, Harris should have something quick and understandable ready in response to a question like that, adding, and that really wasn't it. CNN political commentator Ashley Allison said she wished Harris would have alluded to the next 4 years in her answer to the question about whether Americans were better off during Donald Trump's presidency. But really the bottom line here, according to CNN political commentator Scott Jennings, was to answer the freaking question. He basically went on to say that every single policy question that Harris got at the debate, she totally ignored it and never answered it. And the question remains, why is it that she believes she does not have to answer to journalists who are asking pretty basic questions of a presidential candidate? Could it be her strategy in all this? Like she's intentionally planning to not answer any questions? This is what CNN political analyst Coleman Hughes said, that what has worked for Kamala Harris is literally to not make headlines, to give vague but presidential sounding answers to questions, and allow voters to project the image of who they hope she is onto her. I mean, are these people for real? They're actually encouraging the Democratic presidential nominee to give vague answers to the American people? Really? They acknowledge it, but they're not even going to call her out for it? Then again, Hughes admitted that Harris does tend to get in trouble when she answers off the cuff. She can be a gaffe machine when she's unprepared. Oh, we know about that. Now, following the NABJ interview, Politico reported that Kamala Harris refused to veer off script. The report said that Kamala Harris evaded questions about important issues and did not break much ground or even stray away from her talking points. Seriously, is Kamala Harris even a serious candidate at this point, or just pretty much a talking puppet for the Democratic higher-ups? Kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? Guys, drop a quick comment, yes or no, down in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. Also hit the like button. But seriously, guys, we need to get this message out, and each and every single comment and subscription, every like, this will help us do exactly that. Thank you guys so much. So let's get back to it. Now, to really understand what Kamala Harris is trying to hide by evading all these hard questions, we need to just kind of like look at who she is exactly. An undeniable part of what some would argue is the worst administration in US history. Because see guys, despite what the propaganda media would have you believe, it's the economy that is preventing Vice President Kamala Harris from breaking through with the American people. So no matter how much puffed positive coverage the media gives her, she just can't seem to establish a clear lead. Why? Well, one made up word: Bidenomics. More precisely, it's the impact on the economy for which Kamala Harris is partly responsible. I mean, you guys saw the clips. On the rare occasion where Kamala Harris actually allows someone from the press to publicly ask her about the economy, she gives the strangest answers. You could even call it weird if you want. During the ABC News presidential debate, David Muir asked her, when it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago? And guess what? Kamala Harris said that she was raised as a middle-class kid and gave a clumsy biographical answer which included zero policy. A few days later, during her only interview since the debate, her response to a question from anchor Brian Taff about her specific plans for the economy, it was better memorized but equally unresponsive. And yes, it was still about growing up as a middle-class kid, that she grew up in a neighborhood of folks who were very proud of their lawn. Y'all remember that line, right? Because what else would she talk about? Bidenomics? For nearly 4 years, she and Joe Biden have been claiming that Bidenomics would bring down the cost of living, invest in infrastructure, empower families, and make life better for all Americans. Well, here we are 4 years later, and it just simply hasn't happened. And hey, that's not going to stop her from making the same claims about her mystery plan on the campaign trail. Don't believe me? Just look at the numbers. Rasmussen reports found that only 20% of Americans wanted policies in general to stay the same. Nearly 3 out of 4, or 73%, do want things to change. Only 23% said economic conditions were improving. By contrast, 52% said that things were getting worse. In parallel, Scott Rasmussen, a separate polling outfit, reported that only 26% of Americans thought that the economy was excellent or good. Now, a full 74% rated the economy poor. Do I even have to say it? If you are the candidate of the incumbent White House party and only a quarter of Americans think that the economy is good or improving, well, you have a huge problem. But hey, let's not talk about that, right? Instead, let's talk about Kamala Harris growing up as a middle-class kid and her favorite phrase, what can be unburdened by what has been. Because being on video saying that you would shut down fracking on your first day in office would kill more than 105,000 jobs in Western Pennsylvania, it just kind of compounds your problem. So let's not talk about that, I guess. Do you know what the strongest argument against Kamala Harris right now is? The fact that Americans go to the grocery store every day. And what happens there? Well, people are reminded every day that the Biden-Harris administration has made everything too expensive. And again, she's the current vice president of the country, arguably the second most powerful person in the United States right now. If she wants change to happen, why not just start now? Or better yet, why couldn't she have started 4 years ago? Well, I doubt that we're really going to get any kind of meaningful answers to this, because it's less than 2 months away from the most important election of our lives, and Kamala Harris is nowhere to be seen. The vice president wants to be a champion of democracy that she's barely speaking to the the voters that she's counting on. Since July 21st, she's given only 3 interviews and held 0 press conferences. Now, let's remember, it's the same strategy used in Joe Biden's 2020 campaign. Hide the candidate in the basement and hope correctly that the legacy media will cooperate and go easy on them. I mean, we see the same thing with Democratic VP Tim Walz with just 4 interviews and no press conferences. I mean, it's just unbelievable that their campaign thinks that they can get away with this, but apparently it can. But I guess this approach is necessary for them, especially since Kamala Harris was only placed on the ticket after Joe Biden's senility became way too severe in public for those to camouflage efforts to work any longer. But also the fact that Kamala Harris has a history of flip-flopping on key issues, something that the media often overlooks. Meanwhile, Walz is still notorious for his failure to prevent the largest COVID fraud case in the country. $25 million stolen from funds that were supposed to feed children, not to mention his handling of the Minneapolis riots following George Floyd's death. Now, to compare, the Republican candidate Donald Trump and his running mate J.D. Vance, they've done over 70 interviews and press conferences in the exact same period. J.D. Vance alone has done more than 7 times the combined total of Harris and Walz. Talk about transparency. 70 versus 3? That's a no-brainer. But let's put it this way, guys. I totally get why Harris is avoiding the spotlight. I mean, she oversaw the Biden administration's border disaster, as the borders are, allowing millions upon millions of illegal migrants into the country. At least according to Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, has contributed to rising unemployment. Harris, a longtime leftist, has also supported controversial policies from hating Israel and backing sex change surgery for ICE detainees to plenty of other woke madness. I guess her silence this campaign season does say a lot. Well, guys, the great wealth transfer is in full effect. And, you know, whether it's Donald Trump that ends up winning the election or if it's Kamala Harris, oh God, we're in a world of a pickle, as my grandfather would say. Our freedoms are being stolen, guys. Credit card companies are out to get us. And if you don't understand the game, well, you end up getting played by the game. Now, if you're anything like me, guys, you know, you were probably out of shape, maybe in debt, living paycheck to paycheck, and just feeling like the system is just completely taking advantage of you. I remember for a long time, I could rarely ever get any time to spend with my wife. And it's kind of funny because where I used to work with a lot of married men. And a lot of those married men would always complain about their spouses as if they really just didn't even like their spouses, which is sounding like a pretty horrible situation. But that was the case for many of them. They didn't like who they were married to. But I was different. Anyway, through trial and error and through a lot of pain, I figured out how to gain freedom and also lose a lot of weight and actually get in shape. And guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, that was a game changer. To no longer be living paycheck to paycheck, figuring out how to get the credit cards to pay me, the power of a strong credit score. I pay thousands of dollars less per year for the same house as my neighbor just because my credit is better than his is. And this is not to brag. I mean, but this is the truth. The banks are literally taking advantage of the poor. It's like the people who can least afford it, they're charging the poor what is like unofficially called a poor tax or a tax on the poor. I mean, I'm now at a point where, you know, like, number one, I don't pay for credit cards. In fact, credit card companies pay me to use their cards. And I figured out how to build a lifestyle that is just ultimately very, very healthy. I lost a tremendous amount of weight and I put on a lot of muscle. But when I was struggling, I wish I knew people who knew these things. So anyway, I decided to create a community of like-minded people who are also interested, just like me, in living better. So if you guys want to join my community, it's called the Liberty Pursuit Network. It is brand new. Come on over. I'd love to have you guys and join like-minded people. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now. And so, guys, this is what we're dealing with right now. And I think it becomes very simple when you put it this way. If you're going to vote with your wallet in mind. It's as simple as that. Much simpler than asking the vice president what she plans on doing for the economy. There's a reason as to why they hid Kamala Harris for more than a month after being handpicked by her party. There's a logic to this, guys. Kamala Harris is not fit for speaking engagements where she doesn't have a script. You can cite the debate all you want, but we know for certain that she was prepared for that ABC debate. We can say that because all of her answers from then are still being repeated today, much like what she and Tim Walz continue to tout about their plan for the economy. They keep circling back to their middle-class life when that doesn't even answer the question at all. Don't take my word for it, just watch this.
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I grew up a middle-class kid.
I believe in the ambition, the aspirations, the dreams of the American people.
You know, we have ambitions and aspirations and dreams.
The ambition, the aspiration, the dream.
I started my career as a prosecutor.
I was a career prosecutor for most of my career.
Having a background as a prosecutor.
I intend to create an opportunity economy.
Developing and creating an opportunity economy.
What I imagine and believe and call an opportunity economy.
And I want you guys to watch the body language here as Harris finished up her interview at the NABJ. Do you see the looks being shared here? And the VP doesn't even have the decency to look at the crowd before exiting. She just kind of waves them off because she knows that she bombed again.
New polling is in today on the swing states from the Hill and from Emerson College. We'll get to the average point in a moment, but all of these polls right here, this is one poll, but all of these polls in the swing states, every single one of them is within the margin of error. Look, 48, 49, 50, 47, 49, 47. So it's as close as can be. What's interesting, if you take out the leans and just look at which direction that they're going, Trump, Arizona, Wisconsin, Georgia, and also Pennsylvania has the slightest of advantages where Harris is up in Michigan. North Carolina, Nevada's just completely tied. Now, if you focus on the big three so-called blue wall states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, we've had a decent amount of data come in since the debate in those states. And it's close, very, very close.
And it is this fact that is pulling down her numbers in the polls. They hid her for way too long, and now everybody's waiting on her words. The problem is that it's been disappointing for many voters, especially independent voters who are still choosing between her and Donald Trump. Now, it's also very evident that mainstream media is shocked that Kamala Harris doesn't have as much support. I'm not shocked, though. I mean, she's been shown to have rallies with thousands of supporters, and yet it's hard to find one organically. Check out what CBS News said about finding supporters for the VP.
We had so much fun, but what was really incredible is in every single restaurant of the people willing to talk to us, we could only find one Harris supporter in every restaurant, and we left no stone unturned. I approached every single person.
I believe that she would have gotten a better number if she notified Harris's team so that they could have bussed in more of a crowd. Now, what's really surprising for those at Rasmussen is that more than half of the respondents claim that Donald Trump is the fresh new start that they need. Now, remember guys, this guy has already been in the office. He's already held the White House for 4 years, and yet voters are saying that he is the one who can take this country into a new direction. It doesn't end there because a whopping 73% of them say that the general conditions in our country is calling for a fresh start and a new direction. Top pollster John McLaughlin, he also confirmed that the race is tight, despite what you and I hear from mainstream media, mainly because what we hear has Harris absolutely leading Trump everywhere. But what they're not telling us is that 60% of voters are worried about the nation going down the wrong track. Of those voters, 78% believe that Kamala Harris will continue this trend. Not looking good for Harris. 74% believe that Trump will instead steer us away from it. Very good news for Trump. Now, I should also note that the numbers show that Kamala Harris is in for a steep drop in the polls, especially as she has no choice but to continue to hold interviews where she's left to answer off the cuff. Those never work out well for her. And it's for this reason, guys, as to why her team is basically begging Donald Trump for a debate rematch. One where they can have control once again, maybe do another 3-on-1 like they did during the ABC News debate, and place moderators who would fact-check Trump at every turn. Her team likely knows that the more voters learn about her real views, the worse it will be for her. And the same thing goes for Tim Walz. This seems to be a deliberate effort to withhold important information, preventing Americans from making an informed choice in November. And none of the so-called guardians of democracy seem to be concerned about it. So let me know if I'm making sense to you guys. Are you seeing the Kamala Harris crisis like I am? Drop a quick yes or no in the comments down below, guys. We'll pick it up again in a future update. In fact, I'm already working very hard on the next one right now as we speak. So make sure you guys do not miss it. Hit the subscribe button, tap the notification bell right after. And while you guys are waiting, I highly recommend checking out our other videos on this channel. We have a recent one where we dove into Kamala Harris's supporters dropping major tea on their president, even saying that she doesn't make a good candidate. For real, guys, you got to check that one out to believe it. I'll drop a link for you guys down below. And hey, as always, thank you for liking the video. Thank you for subscribing and sharing these videos on social media. I'll see you guys next time.